That's really clever. So you utilize the meat and potatoes, so to say, from the book to help bring that into the springboard into the business and for writing up not policies and procedures, but writing up different aspects to help teach other people how to do what you're doing. Okay. And then I was just thinking back, and I always, I sometimes I dumbify topics.
Well, here's a good story. How many times do you encounter people that are contemplating something but can't quite pull the trigger?
You mean starting up a business? You mean, or just
Yeah. Yeah, starting up a business, leaving what they're doing now, and just they can't pull the trigger, even though they really, really want to.
they're terrified. Well, I'll answer that in reverse, saying what they feel like, and they're terrified. They think that the cliff is an abyss and not a mountain to climb up to go higher, and they fear everything that could go wrong, and they tend to focus on the negatives as opposed to the positives. But I deal with it all the time in business. People trying to make that leap from employed to self-employed or working for somebody else to owning their own business. It happens a lot, and people get afraid of that.
We are victims of momentum. We are victims of momentum. We will follow the same pathway, even if we hate it, unless we're given a shove in a new direction. So that's where I was when I was getting ready to found this business. I'd written a book. I was getting the book published and out there, but I was still driving in an hour commute on the way in the morning and an hour and a quarter in the evening. um, Frustrated, angry. Every evening I would come home, my wife would say, "How are you?" I'm and so one evening she's the world's greatest salesperson, although she would never say that. She would never even internalize that. But she said, "So when are you gonna start your new business? When are you gonna start the second room?" We talked about the names of it. And I said, real soon. And she says, "Okay, let's say you start the business, you resign tomorrow, you start the second year tomorrow, after it. What's the She's the beautiful question. She said, "What's the worst thing that could happen?" And I said, "Well, and by the way, we'd gone through a slightly different discussion just immediately prior to that, which was me asking, well, how much runway do we have? If I don't make a single sale, how much runway do we have you know, before we're out of business?" And she said about 9 months to a year. Now, great. What you and I had spoken earlier, one of the funny things you asked me was, well, how do you manage your money? And I said, I don't. My job has always been to bring in the revenues, pass it to my wife, who then hides it from me. 'Cause I will make yeah, I will make bad investment decisions, a little bit like Mark Twain and his typesetting machine. Um, and yeah, I'll make bad decisions. So that's been our relationship since we had children. As you know, I was became the primary revenue new revenues generator and pass it over to her. Anyway, so she knew how much money we had. And I said, "Hey, what's our runway?" She said, "9 months to the year." And then she says, "What's the worst thing that could happen?" And I said, "Well, we don't get any traction, and I have to go back and get a real job." And she said, "Would it be a challenge to do that?" I said, "No, I know there's several companies that would be delighted to have me." She said, "Then is there any reason why you shouldn't get started right away?" And I went, "I guess not." But that was yeah, that was important. Working me over the edge of the cliff.